The sitting is resumed.
Mr. Speaker, revert to papers.
Honourable Leader Governor.
Mr. Speaker, I am commanded to lay the Barbados Economic and Social Report 2023.
Government business resume.
Prior to the suspension for lunch, this honourable chamber was in Standing Finance Committee debating the Appropriation Bill 2025. We return to Standing Finance Committee.
This Honourable House is now in Standing Finance Committee. When we broke for lunch, we were with the Honourable Member for St. Michael South. You may resume, sir.
Thank you. I believe the Honourable Minister was responding to my question on Bayville, I think.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to begin, but I'm going to pass on to the project manager, who's the sole engineer in our midst. Bayville is similar to the Pine. The Pine Estate's one of the oldest, and while I would try to refrain from using the word dilapidated, they have reached a stage that we need to replace them. But I would allow the Mr. Dwight Thornhill, project manager, to come in and speak on the technical aspect of what our plans are, and how we plan to address this matter.
Thank you, Minister. Good afternoon. My name is Dwight Thornhill, project manager, National Housing Corporation. As the Minister would have stated, on Bayland, these units were the second oldest units. They were built back in 1949, 1950, right? And like in the Pine, this is a situation where you would have to look at the cost to repair or remedy as compared to the cost to rebuild, right? So a cost-benefit analysis will have to be done like how we would have done in the Pine, where you found the situation where you have lower burning to deal with the situation in the Pine where the houses are old and the cost of repairs wouldn't make sense from a cost-benefit analysis. So that's definitely a situation which we'll have to look into in Bayville, given the age of the units and the amount of repairs to be done. Does that answer your question, Honourable Minister Humphrey?
I supported it because I will go bolder to say we're going to have to replace these units similar to how we have engaged with the Pine and Lower Burnie. You said it. And the aim now would be to find suitable land, and perhaps we can leave that space, member for St. Michael South, as a green space. But the time has come where we have to recognize, in an effort to improve the living standards of our people, these are some of the things we would have to do. Knock down and replace, in simple Bajan parlance. Lick down and rebuild. And we would not do that with a view to disadvantage any of the homeowners. We would do that with a view to enhance the living conditions of those persons. And I think there are 85 units there, if I'm correct. And certainly, while we don't have any monies in the budget for that, member for St. Michael South, I will assure you the surveys will be done, and we will seek to identify and allocate lands that we can begin this process. So that is the way forward with respect to those units at Bayville.
All right, thank you very much, Honourable Minister. I am sure the residents will be happy to begin those conversations, considering, as was stated, the amount of work that really needs to be done on those units. It is indeed a lot of work because the units are old. My second question is related. The housing schemes or housing areas, as we call them. Honourable Member, you know I feel very passionate about housing schemes. I grew up in one. And I am most comfortable in Pine, Henesville, Gaw Hill, Silver Hill, those areas. And I know Barbados has a housing problem, and that perhaps the most immediate solution will be to build these large housing areas to accommodate persons to be able to respond to what essentially is a demand for housing. And this has plagued governments for years. My concern is, Honourable Member, that these housing schemes, these housing areas, are a response to one social problem, but that they create other social problems. You construct a housing area, and then you bring persons into these housing areas. You do not have enough space for playing fields, hard courts. I mean, if you go through the Pine, you'll find a couple of hard courts, but when you look at the amount of people, just not enough space to accommodate the children or to accommodate the activity. And while I think it is a response to a housing problem, it creates these other social problems. You know, like Newton's third law. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So my question really is in relation to the vision. Where are we going? Because essentially we have to solve our housing crisis, but we cannot do so in a way that will lend itself to the development of further challenges socially and otherwise. So perhaps, I don't know, in relation to urban planning, how we're going to resolve this, but what is the vision? Because it is obvious that we have to do something. We do have to build more housing, and we do have to build housing for persons who are in the lower socioeconomic bracket, but that you want to do so in a way that is humane looking, first of all, but in a way that allows people to be their best self, and that what housing areas produce is not because of the value of the people, but that these areas do not allow people to become their best selves. And therefore I want to know what is the vision in relation to being able to respond to this housing solution, this housing problem.
Thank you, Honourable Member for St. Michael South. It's an excellent question. And I'm going to use this opportunity to welcome our resident planner, the Chief Planning Officer, Mr. Raymond Lord for NHC, to build on what I'm going to start here this afternoon. It's an excellent question. And we recognize the time has come that if we're seeking to focus on urban renewal, it just can't be building houses. There are different types of houses, but more fundamentally for me, other than the mixed designs, are the type of culture we want to create within these environments, whereby in the past, like you said, you would build a housing unit and you bring everybody in it from a low socio-economic background and say, listen, look, that's how we dump these people. That's not what this government is about. We just did a study at Greenfield, and the member for the city would be happy to know we're looking at regeneration at Greenfield. The HNUT program will be back, not as the HNUT program, but we're looking at areas of Wellington Street, Greenfield, Cats Castle, and those areas that the former administration, they were well endowed through the IDB program to address these matters, and the matters were not addressed. And we're back to square one after 10 years. But the reality is, the study showed we really have to, if we're building housing projects for low income, we need to get social workers in these developments. We need to get policemen in these developments. We need to get educators in these developments, so we don't bring persons who have suffered from the lack of proper socialization, people that can edify them and teach them good values, and we build one and just transport a problem from one area to the next. That's not what we are doing. I'm going to pause here because the resident planner, Mr. Raymond Lord, is the only planner within the ministry of that sort, and he will seek to address and add to what I'm saying. I know he's well endowed with, he has the competence to go further. So I will allow Mr. Raymond Lord, the Chief Planning Officer from NHC, to address.
Good afternoon, Chair. Raymond Lord, Chief Planning Officer, National Housing Corporation. To answer the honourable member's question, it will take some multifaceted approach. The vision is, in our mind, the ministry among our planning colleagues, and I'm not the only planner, I'm the only technical planner really, is we really want to create a Barbadian village and replicate the concept of village. We want to shy away from building, let me not say another Haynes or another Plain, but as you said, sir, that comes with specific problems and specific social problems. So if we do multi-unit designs, we will include those in broader subdivision designs. That helps with the use of the land, really. So you will have persons who, in a subdivision, who would rent and also purchase. So you get that community mixing, that social fabric mixing that we want to create. We've done it before. We've done it at Flat Rock, that came up earlier, that is the section of Flat Rock that contained units, and there's a section that contained land that was sold. So this government before has done this, and we know that it works. Down to the social programming, as it were, we also know that if we strategically take people from different parts of society by jobs and different segments, we can put them into communities and we don't get the trouble. We honestly know that we've done it before because we've done it at a part, as my colleagues know, at Church Village in Phillip, where we have a very good functioning subdivision. So all of these housing solutions take some measure of social programming and design. We know, for example, that the terrace unit creates a particular problem with extensions. So we've looked recently at the quad, and as I said, from the former minister who claims the design, who claims the design for the sex duplex, we've all gone to a 3-story building now that we're looking to deploy in some areas, again with amenities. One of the long-term visioning things we're looking at, again with space and adult space, is to start having wider conversations with persons such as the National Sports Council. Because what we find sometimes, we will allocate large areas for football fields or large for sporting fields, but there's no community connection to the sporting field. So we're thinking in our minds that if we can connect the Sports Council and develop some areas together, we could have a better outcome. For example, I'll close with this, at Bonafide Estates, which is Hanson that we're developing, we've already put in the design a walking track around the facility. And we're looking at some other areas that we can have some passive exercise solutions. Again, if we can bridge the gap with other people and create those things, we can get people outside and get them moving and do different things. And again, address the social problem where we don't create, as in some areas, what I like to call negative social spaces where people can get nefarious activities. Spaces that are lit, spaces that people can play, that they can enjoy themselves. So the vision takes in a whole concept of a village, and the happiness in that space. We try to move the land use and the housing forward, sir.
My final question, I imagine that was my follow-up. My final question, Minister, I'm going to have many, but my final question, I heard you speak on the social housing, so I won't go there, but in your budget, there is a provision of $547,000 for HIV prevention, care, and support. My ministry has responsibility for the HIV, or the Well-Being and HIV Commission. I'm just wondering what those monies, you have 2 budgets actually, what those monies are used for. One is prevention, I think that's $170,000, and the other is care and support, which is $547,000, and I'm just wondering what those monies are for in this particular vote. That's it, Chair.
Thank you, member for Christchurch, for St. Michael South. The program, the HIV program, member, this program was going on since 2018. Indeed, well, I'm saying financials from 2018, where we house persons living with HIV. And the statistics show that since 2018, we've been renting facilities for persons living with HIV. 16 persons back in 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 20 persons, and this financial year, 2024, 2025, we've housed some 26 rental fees for 26 clients. This is all about housing for every last person. That program that you see the funding, I think it is 600,000. That's it. Find it there for me. 547. Right. That's the one whereby we're housing and providing housing for clients. We have also built houses over the years for persons living with HIV across the country, and we sought to keep this program. I mean, this is a very sensitive area, and we don't like to discuss this, you know, to let persons know where these houses are, because this has a stigma associated with it, and we will keep it that way. To the fact that, member for St. Michael South, I really don't want any other member to speak on this program because of the sensitive nature of it. The other budget, which is a smaller budget, is about sensitization within the ministry, and we do fairs, we do several different programs where we sensitize persons about the stigma and persons living with HIV and how they can live a life. These are some of the things we do at our ministry, but the bulk of the budget, the expenditure you see annually, goes into housing persons with HIV and AIDS. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you, Honourable Member, and kudos to the Ministry for doing what could only be considered the most noble pursuit. That's it, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, sir. My questions, as always, are directed to the Minister, and if he has difficulty, he can delegate, but I do not ask questions directly of public officers or public officials. The Honourable Minister would have heard me deal in my opening largely with what I call the disaster called hope. And the Minister said this morning that they had taken $60 million out of the Housing Credit Fund and had paid back $4 million. That is a voice of authority. Could the Honourable Minister please tell Barbadians where that $4 million came from? For the sake of transparency, is it a loan? Is it a grant? Is it a gift to the government? It is done on the people's business. The people have a right to know. If you don't know, say so. You're delaying. That's why I'm continuing to speak. You're not answering. Where did the $4 million come from?
Honourable Leader of the Opposition, please give the Minister a chance to respond.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Chair and Honourable Leader of the Opposition. You have been very cordial so far for the day. I don't think I will interrupt you either when you speak, and I would like the opportunity to say to you, the Housing Credit Fund money is a loan. And I
beg your pardon?
The Housing Credit Fund monies allocated to Hope is a loan to Hope. And I'm going on. I'm going on. So
yes.
Bear with me, sir. Bear with me.
Yes, I'll bear with you.
We'll be very cordial.
I know you're under a lot of pressure, but so I'll bear with you.
We'll be very cordial here. We'll be very cordial.
Yes, and I sympathize with you earlier today.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You realize, Honourable Member for Christchurch South, and I know you want to hear the chairman, and I will let him speak, but I have a right to speak. Mm-hmm. We have thus far allocated and sold 72 houses. And I said this morning, Hope is on a sustainable path indeed to utilize the liquidity within the banking system to allow it to create funding to repair the Housing Credit Fund from the mortgage monies received from clients. And that is the process that we have engaged in at Hope. But I'm going to allow the chairman of Hope, because I know you want the chairman of Hope to
I
speak.
don't know who is the chairman.
And I will allow Mr. Colin Scaife, the chairman
that's
of
the
Hope.
chairman?
The chairman of Hope to speak.
Okay.
Sir, I'm not interrupting you. Let's be cordial.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Thank you.
No, but you're accusing me of knowing things I don't know anything.
All right, sir. So I'm going to allow the chairman of Hope at this stage to come in, and I'm sure he can. I would ask the chairman to give him a little leverage to explain the process at Hope, the industrial process that is revolutionary and that is innovative. So over to you, Mr. Brewer, Mr. Scaife.
I asked about a repayment. I am not interested in any industrial process or any innovation.
Honourable-
I just want to know where the
Honourable
$4 million
Leader of the
came from.
Opposition.
And if the answer has been given, let Mr. Scaife.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition, your role is to ask questions, not give
Thank you, sir.
directions. Thank you.
Oh, no, nothing about the industrial, nothing.
Good afternoon. My name's Colin Scaife. I'm the chairman of Hope. To answer the question that was raised, so sales revenues from the sale of the 72 houses at Vespera Gardens were used, the revenues were used to repay the loan. So 4 million was paid from there.
All right, the follow-up question to the minister is this. Were these houses sold at a profit to Hope, or were they sold at below cost? Simple question. You can pause as long as you want.
You know, we're going to answer you because this morning I can't believe that you didn't hear my preamble about the whole process.
I have a right to ask questions.
Yeah,
I'm
no problem.
under no obligation to accept what you said this morning. I'm asking a simple
Honourable
question.
Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
it's
Mr. Chairman. And I'm going to allow Mr. Scaife to
you go, I'm back to
elucidate and to expand on what I articulated this morning. Over to you, Mr. Scaife.
So to articulate what the model was when Hope was set up, the idea was that PV revenues would be to subsidize infrastructure costs associated with the housing. So to date, the sales prices of the houses cover themselves, but the infrastructure and land is yet to be repaid.
My question is, were the houses sold at above cost, or were they sold at a profit? That's a simple question. Minister?
Let me speak on this one.
Thank you very much.
And I said earlier, the model being
I hear about the
used.
model or the idea. I asked about if they
Honourable
were sold
Leader
at
of the
above cost.
Opposition.
This is not a yes or no room.
This is not
And
right?
this is not a yes or no room, and I have
Minister,
to explain
proceed with your
myself. Thank you,
answer.
sir. Thank you. The value of the houses being sold at Hope
Your Honor,
are
I beg your
below
pardon.
the value of, are below the market value simply because we have utilized the land and the cost of the infrastructure.
Your Honor, I must
Utilizing
interrupt.
the-
Honourable-
I must interrupt.
Honourable
I
Leader-
asked a simple
Honourable
question.
Leader of the
Are they sold
Opposition.
at above cost?
Honourable Leader
Below
of the
cost.
Opposition.
Cost and value are two different things.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Yes, Your Honor.
Giving someone, the minister, the opportunity to respond and constantly interrupting are also two different things. Please give the Honourable Minister
yes.
the opportunity to respond.
You see, the problem is, I fear that the answer will not come and you will count that as a question.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition, you do not advise this chair. Please give the minister the opportunity to respond. If you continue to interrupt, we shall invoke these standing orders and move on. I want you to make your contribution and allow the minister to make his contribution as well.
What do those standing orders say, sir?
Thank you, sir. Part of me, I am beginning to believe that the honourable member, while he is excellent at law, I don't believe that he understands financial modeling.
Well, that's why I'm asking
So
simple
I am
questions.
seeking, sir, to explain to him how the model works. Therefore, he's asking whether the houses
But Your Honor,
are
I'm
being
not
sold
asking
below
about a model,
cost.
I'm asking about a fact. Were the houses sold at below cost, or were they sold at a profit? I'm not asking about value.
Honorable.
The houses are being sold at a cost below at which the market value them, so that the homeowners can indeed achieve some equity in the homes. We sell houses and not infrastructure and land. That is why I'm saying that the PV, the photovoltaic on the roof that will come into play, will pay back over a 15 or 20-year period for the infrastructure and the cost of the land. So it is quite obvious from what I'm saying that the value of the entire property when you go to the bank will be valued more than what the individual will pay for it, and it is a benefit to them.
So you're
And it is a benefit to them.
So the answer is that, oh, he's not finished, I beg your pardon. So the answer is that you have sold those houses at you're saying value. You're saying you've sold the houses at below value. I asked about below cost, but you're using value. Where are we? Have you sold them at below cost?
The Honourable Minister.
We have sold the houses.
The Honourable Minister has responded to the question.
Thank you very much. So the responses,
Honourable.
I'll follow up. Permit me to follow up, sir. So that, you're so kind, sir. So you're very kind, sir.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition, I don't need the platitudes. Please allow the Minister to speak. You will get your opportunity to follow up with your question.
The Honourable Minister has finished, sir.
But you interrupted before I finished.
Oh, I'm sorry,
The cost of construction of a house is different to the value of a house, because the value.
We know that. And if it costs $100,
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
we are discussing costs.
Honourable
and he's
Leader of the
discussing
Opposition, and we will have the conversation in an orderly fashion.
But you know,
You've
sir,
been given your opportunity to
yes,
speak.
and you're very kind. I really appreciate your
Honourable Leader of
kindness.
the Opposition, we're not going to go through this every time. We're not going to go through this.
I'm sorry to
We're
put you
not
through it,
going to
sir.
go through this all the time, Honourable Leader of the Opposition. You pose your question, please allow the Minister to answer. You can't tell him how to answer either.
I can tell him what I'm asking.
He is quite clear, that's what he's answering.
He's answering as the value I've asked, that's the cost. They're two different
Proceed,
things, sir.
Honourable Member.
Thank you, Chair. You know, before lunch I said the Honourable Member was very cordial.
Probably didn't have enough lunch.
And I'm going to remain cordial with him. The cost of a house, the cost to construct a house is totally different to the value at which a house will be valued.
Everybody
we have
knows that.
land, so it is being sold at the cost of which it is constructed. And I've said to him that the cost at which the homeowner goes to the bank is way below the cost, including the infrastructure and the cost of the land. It is a model that we're seeking to allow the ordinary Barbadians, and I understand why the member is going there, because the member came to this chamber and he said to us in glowing terms that we are taking up agricultural land to build houses for poor people. So clearly this model that we have articulated and we have engaged in and we have revolutionized the housing market is geared towards poor people. The houses are being sold at the cost of which they are constructed.
Thank you. Oh, you're not finished, not finished. You finished? Thank you very much. So that we have the Minister of Housing in Barbados saying to the people of Barbados that the houses have been sold at cost. costs. Yet the Honourable Minister is telling the people of this country that they've realized the profit and that the $4 million has been paid out of profit. It's not making a lot of sense, but let us press on. We still want to know where the $4 million came from. You can't reverse it now. I'm following up, sir. The minister, the Honourable Minister, has answered that the houses have been sold at cost. I now follow up and ask the minister, if the houses, if the monies, the $4 million have been paid out of the sale of the houses, and the houses have been sold at cost, from where has the $4 million come? Has the government donated it? Has it come out of the consolidated fund? That's why I asked. That is what I asked when I first asked. Is it a grant? Is it a gift? Is it out of the consolidated fund? Is it a loan? Where is the $4 million coming from? Because clearly, based on your answer, it would not have come out of profits realized by Hope. Where is it coming from? The people of Barbados have a right to know.
Mr. Chair, and I will engage the honourable member because we are seeking to enlighten the public and the chamber as well as the honourable member.
Deal with the public.
Because the honourable member didn't realize up to now that this model is utilizing the liquidity in the banking system. So you are selling these homes. Persons go to the bank for a mortgage. You use working capital from the Housing Credit Fund. The said part of the $40,000 that the honourable member alluded to, the $40 million that the honourable member alluded to earlier, to build the houses, and put in the infrastructure, set up the Hope PV, Hope SPV, to cater to the PV, because the PV, when it comes into play soon, will pay back for the infrastructure and the cost of the land. So the ordinary man, say, member for St. James Central, wants a house at Lancaster in his constituency. Hope builds the house. He qualifies for a mortgage. He goes to the bank. The bank releases the money, but the money goes to Hope. And Hope, that is the model that all private sector companies are engaging in the joint ventures with NHC for years. It is a model, they utilize the liquidity in the banking system. No one is disadvantaged. That's how NHC is paid for lands that they would have invested into the joint venture partnership at Atlantic Breeze, what will happen at Vineyard, what has happened years ago at ADC in West Terrace. The land is put in as collateral by NHC, that's their part of the joint venture. The private entity goes to the bank, borrows money, put in the infrastructure, builds the home, and then send the member for St. James Central to the bank and say, listen, you need this house. Go to the bank and get the money. The bank pays the private sector entity the money. And then you repay the bank, because the bank makes its money on interest payment. That is the model. I would like to spend some time with the honourable member where he can teach me law, and I can teach him the process, the industrial process. I can teach him and he can teach me law. Thank you.
I have to decline the offer, and I heard an aside about common sense. Not from you, because the
Honourable Leader of the
people in St. John, the people in St. John were told to check their bills.
It's not about you responding to what the honourable member You're responding to what
Because
the
the empty pipes
honorable
were
member
leaking.
says.
And they're talking about
The
common
honorable
sense in
minister
here.
is nothing about, you're not responsible to any,
You went up to St. John and
you
told
are,
people
you
check
are on
their-
the floor,
check their pipes.
the honorable member is on the floor. That's the conversation here,
No wonder you stopped him yesterday.
right?
No wonder you wrapped up. All right.
Proceed with your next.
Thank you very much.
question.
Still on hope. Still on hope. All right, let us not bother with the empty pipes in St. John that the residents were told check and see if they're leaking. Let's not bother with that. You? You must learn to keep out of people's
Honorable
business.
Leader of the
Went up
opposition,
in St. John and told the people check
I'm
empty
asking
pipes.
you to proceed
And come in here
with
talking
your
about common
question.
sense.
Proceed with your question, Honorable Leader of the
Come here
opposition,
talking about
or
common sense.
I shall move on.
At a big town hall, he broke up a town hall meeting, sir. He broke up a town hall meeting.
Honorable Leader of the opposition, please move on.
Keep him out of St. Lucie, sir, when you dealing with the brown water down there.
What does that have to do with this discussion, sir? You do not want to descend into that. You do not want to descend into that, honorable member.
We're going along so nicely. And he interrupts.
Honorable member, proceed. You
Thank
are
you very
wasting,
much.
right now you're wasting the time of the
I'm
House.
sorry, sir, but tell him to keep his mouth shut. Last question, sir, on this matter. And a constituent has asked that we ask this question. A constituent of Barbados. Now, you see, they're gone again. They're gone again.
Honorable member, proceed.
You know, the opposition
Honorable
cannot
member.
get peace here at all.
Honorable member, proceed.
Could you read the
But
standing orders for that,
that is
sir?
where you are in this chamber, honorable member, and that is where you have opportunity to speak. You do not come in here to beg for peace.
I'm obliged to you, sir. You ready for us, sir?
I've said to you, speak every sentence. Honorable members,
Thank you, sir.
honorably the opposition, proceed with your final
You're very
question.
kind, sir. They call it reinforcements now. they got reinforcements. The gang of force upon us. Now, I'm going to read it.
Honorable leader of the opposition, proceed.
The gang of force upon us, sir.
Honorable member, are you are a man
I'm
of
ready,
law.
sir. I am ready.
You follow debates of yesteryear.
Now, honorable member, you were accused of having gone to a meeting and promised the people of Pinelands that they would be relocated to a place called Lower Burney for housing. And I'm going to use your word, housing solutions. What is, and this would have been done by Hope, presumably, because we're on the subject of Hope. Please, the member, please let me ask the question. I don't interrupt. When y'all are asking questions, I sit here and so that you don't bore me to death, I go on social media. The orgy of self-congratulation that the public has to endure when y'all are asking questions. Let me ask some. That too. Yes, what is the status of that promise of housing that was to be delivered to the people in Pinelands based on your promise of relocation to Lower Burney? Could you tell them read the standing order, sir. Could you tell them the status of that promise?
Thank you, Honourable Member. I will speak to the Low Bernie project, and
Thank you very
you mentioned Hope. Low Bernie, Honourable Member, I came to this chamber and invested 20 acres of land at Low Bernie in Hope, and
Yes.
20 acres of land in National Housing Corporation.
Yes.
This is the second time I'll be saying this in this chamber for the day, and I hope I will be as clear as I did earlier. I'm not sure where you were, but I spoke on this
Don't worry,
at length with the member for St. Michael Southeast. I think that was her leading question.
Careful, the Prime Minister come. People get
And
fired.
I think you were here. Low Bernie,
Prime Minister is
Honourable
present.
Member.
Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Don't want you fired.
Honourable Member,
Wow, last week.
you're gonna allow me to speak?
They go in threes. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Low Bernie, currently we are at Low Bernie, clearing the land. We have budgeted in the year
When you
2025.
say, I must do this, we being NHC or Hope?
The government is clearing the land. Let me explain to you.
Yes.
The chief planning officer has responsibility for planning and
Yes,
infrastructure. And after we have designed the roads and we have put in infrastructure, we have a spine road. If you go on a main road, going up Salters Main Road, going to St. George to Buckley Factory, you have some side roads. One will take you to St. George Secondary, and one will take you to Dash Valley in my constituency. The main road going to Buckley Factory is called the Spine Road. And on the left, by St. George Secondary, we'll be doing some development there. Assume that is part of the 40 acre or 20 acre. And on the right, going to Dash Valley, my constituency, is another 20 acre. We're at the stage now of designing the spine road. We have to clear the land to do the topographical survey, to fly our drone, which all geospatial data. We are no longer going out and just mapping things and putting things on a map. We have gone past that. After that, we begin the infrastructure in this financial year. And I said this morning, it is our intention, and we're hoping once we carry on the process of road design, we should start that infrastructure work as early as May 2025. That is in the calendar year 2025. That is in the financial year 2025-2026. And I said earlier that we will not wait until we finish the entire spine road. We will begin the actual construction of houses, because off of the spine road, then you will have some side roads that will lead to the houses. So we will start that development by July in the year 2025. And once we have done that, houses will begin to go up. We discussed this at length this morning, Your Honourable Member, and I know you were in the chamber. It's on social media as well. And I know you were in the chamber. So indeed, work is ongoing. We have done our EIA studies and everything. We have passed town planning's approval. We're at the stage now of road design and getting ready for infrastructure.
He wants to know when he will move in.
Sir,
Pardon?
let him know
Yes.
that we have a planning team and we have a Ministry of Housing, and I don't want to be disrespectful to him, but ask him to come to us and we can show him our Gantt chart to show him the timelines by which we will achieve our objectives of building these houses.
Yes, you said come to you.
Come to us.
He wants to know when he will move in. That's a simple question.
Sir, he will,
Honorable Leader of the Opposition, it might be a simple question, but the Minister has
You can give an
answered your
approximate
question.
date. This
Sir.
year, next year, or when you are retired.
Honorable Leader of the Honorable Minister, You have answered the question.
He was about to answer.
Let's
That's fine.
Let's
That's
proceed.
fine.
That is
No,
not.
he wants to
it
answer
is
some
not-
more, sir.
Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
The honorable leader of the opposition started the question by saying hope. He's going at hope, but little did he know, because he's not following the debates and he's in this house on a weekly basis, that 20 acres
20 and 20.
has been
I know
invested
that.
in NHC and
I
20
know.
in Hope.
I
So
know
Lower
that.
Burney
Hope
is
had
a
no
split
right to it
development.
anyhow.
Thank you.
That's my complement of questions, sir. I don't wish to abuse the rules,
You won't be allowed to abuse the rules.
so that's my full compliment, sir.
Honorable Member for St. James North.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honorable Minister and your team, as has been said earlier, you have an extremely challenging ministry, and I commend you for the work that you're doing. First, wish to address the issue of registration of titles, and to give you the opportunity to speak towards what you referred to as the two colloquiums that would have been held, the last of which would have been held last week, chaired by the Honourable Prime Minister, and the fact that I think it's, 12%, only 12% of the 112,000 odd parcels of land in Barbados are registered as title since the Torrent system of registration came into effect in Barbados in the 1980s. And I want to give you the opportunity to speak to Parliament and to Barbados in terms of what is the strategy or plan going forward to register more titles in Barbados.
Thank you for the question, esteemed attorney. And yeah, I also want to thank you for being present at the colloquium. Last week it was, and indeed you recognize that we have to move to sporadic registration, and this is under the purview of the land registry. I have here with me the land registrar, Ms. Michelle Johnson, and the commissioner, Ms. Joy Green from Land Adjudication, but I will allow Mrs. Michelle Johnson, the registrar, to address you on this matter, because there too, like I said to you, sir, while I can speak to you, they can speak to you in your language and in your terminology, and indeed they will have the clarity of purpose to bring to this chamber and to the public. Not that I don't have it, but respect is due. You have to give respect where respect is due. So the chief, the land registrar, over to you, Ms. Johnson, and feel free to allow Ms. Joy Green to intervene. So over to you.
Michelle Johnson, Registrar of Titles. There are actually three entities, three departments of government, the Ministry of Housing, which are involved in the registration of titles. The process starts with the Lands and Surveys Department, and then it moves to the Land Adjudication Unit, and finally to the Land Registry. I believe Ms. Green, the Commissioner of Titles, can speak to the registration of the parcels, and after the Land Adjudication Unit speaks on registration, the Land Registry then will be responsible for actually compiling the registers from what the Adjudication Unit does.
Good afternoon. You may not be able to see me, but you should be able to hear me. I'm Joy Green, Commissioner of Titles. To answer the question specifically, land registration has been going since 1988. Everyone agrees that the process has taken much longer than it was anticipated and much longer than it should. Arising out of the two colloquiums, it was agreed that we would implement measures to expedite registration. The intention is to try and get the island completed within a 2 to 3 year period. In order to do that, the systematic registration system, which we are currently employing, will be continued. But in addition to that, we will be looking at reviving sporadic and voluntary registration, which allows for the registration of title on the completion of transactions. And just to give a little background, at present, we can only register parcels that fall within a registration district, and there are only 10 of those. So it means that we have lost the opportunity to capture transactions to place on the register when transactions are taking place. So going forward, after we've been able to put the requisite measures in place, it means that if you are engaging in a sale, obtaining a mortgage, releasing a charge, or any of those things, the adjudication unit, in conjunction with the other units, registry and lands and service department, will work expeditiously to try to get those transactions on the register. Based on the information we have, I think land registry does about 3,000 transactions a year. About 2,500 to 3,000 transactions a year. So assuming that not all of those will be, there may be 2 transactions relating to one property. So if we say maybe a quarter of those will not be additional transactions, it will still allow us to get perhaps another 2,000 on the register each year. And we were happy to see the Prime Minister has committed to giving us resources to facilitate that. Going forward within the next week, the next few days, the persons involved in the process are to get together to actually deliver concrete proposals, which should be costed and able to be included in the budget, the upcoming budget. So we have a short time frame. We will be looking at human resources, the utilization of technology where it is possible to reduce the load on humans. We will look at what are the best practices in the rest of the world and see if we can come up with a solution that will allow Barbados to catapult forward from where we are and to reach international standards and make a quantum leap in terms of our registration process. So we're hoping that what we could not do between 1988 and now can be accomplished within the next 3 years.
Thank you, Minister and officers. And for the record, Honourable Chairman, I should have said that's under sub-program 536. Still on the issue of lands and acquisitions, etc. Sub-program 532, Honourable Minister, the issue of the government subsidy, which I believe you mentioned as well in your opening, or at some stage, government subsidy under the purchase of statutory tenantry land. We all know that the enactment of the Tenantry's Freehold Purchase Act in the early 1980s is one of the hallmark socially revolutionary and transformational pieces of legislation by the Barbados Labour Party as a government. But the issue of setting aside monies in the estimates for payment of the government subsidy, the difference between what the tenant pays, whether it's the 10 cents a square foot, because they still have some plantation tenantry lands, which haven't been transferred yet. And I believe the glebe, St. George, owned still by the Anglican Diocese, it has been agreed that would be sold to the tenants at 10 cents a square foot, or whether it's non-plantation tenantry land where the purchasers pay $2.50 per square foot, with the government subsidizing the rest of the purchase price. I believe that previous administrations from both parties have not set aside enough money in the estimates to cover this. And in many cases where the purchaser pays in their subsidy to the government, whether it was to the land registry, previously it was to the Ministry of Housing, but the government didn't have enough funds to pay the balance, and therefore title was not conveyed. And just wondering, Honourable Minister, if you could speak towards this, what assurance can this Parliament give to these tenants who are looking to have their title conveyed to them in a speedy manner?
Thank you, Member. Critical for us, and I spoke on this sub-program in my preamble, where we have allocated funding under 532, tenantries, relocation and redevelopment. I think that's it, some $7 million. And we started the whole process, it's $6 million, which is the payment of the government subsidy to the landlord, the difference between the open market value and the $250 per square foot. And I give in my preamble figures between 2018 and 2025. And I said, if there's one thing that this ministry can be proud of, that between the years 2018 and 2025, member for St. James North, 1,112 individuals in 145 tenantries across rural and urban tenantries, as well as plantation tenantries, have become landowners in this country. And that is as a result of the commitment of this government every single year to vote money in the estimates under the program, capital grants to individual 314. And you will see this year, 2024-2025, 23 subsidies disbursed on behalf of qualified tenants in 14 non-plantation rural tenantries, totaling just over $500,000, and it is broken down. From St. James to Christchurch to St. Peter, I can call them Reed Tenantry, St. James, Bartlett's Tenantry, Christchurch, Ashby Land Lodge Road, Christchurch, Millington Tenantry, Gibbons Bogs, Taylor's Gap, the Garden, that's down by you, sir, around the town, St. Peter, Fostet Village, St. Lucie, Art Gap, Melrose, St. Thomas, Lower Mount Stanford again, that's down by you, St. James, Clark's Road Tenantry, St. Michael, Hoddesdale, Smithland, Bridgecourt, St. George, Fairview, Christchurch, Churchview, Newcastle, and St. John, and the list go on and on and on. And we have allocated in the year, based on the progress of 2025, we are saying 225 persons have the opportunity to become property owners next year. And the disbursement of 23 subsidies means that these individuals will become property owners. So, Honourable Member, this government in 2025-2026 will indeed again, and I have the figures here, 2025-2026 figures, will see another 37 tenantries at just over $600,000. Persons will be given the opportunity through subsidies to own a piece of this rock. I don't know if that answers you.
Yes. Thank you, Honourable Member. And Honourable Chairman, my final intervention on land still, the issue of availability of government land for persons who own houses. And we know, all of us know, as representatives of the people, the issue of where some of our constituents may own a house, but they don't have land to put the house on. In a lot of cases, in some cases, rather, the landlord may have given them notice to quit, to move off of the land. And Honourable Minister, I want to give you the opportunity to inform not only your fellow parliamentarians, but Barbadians as to what is the solution to this problem here, the issue of availability of lands for persons who may own a house but who wish land to rent it on, because at this particular stage, for instance, they don't have the capital or some other reason they don't want to buy the land.
Thank you, Honourable Member, and I can speak from a position of knowledge based on what I'm seeing. There are a number of persons, and the Chief Planning Officer, he can attest to this, or this Chief Legal Officer, both of National Housing Corporation, they can speak to this as well. But I just want to lead into it. Helping every last person. That's our mantra. So the idea of National Housing owning land and persons being able to rent the land, but we are pushing home ownership. And if these persons can rent the land, yes, we are fine. We are relocating persons and we are renting them the land. And I won't say what the cost is. I will leave the CLO to tell you. But that has been NHC's mantra. Currently, there are at least 4 persons before the board I know who are looking to rent land. They don't own the land. They've been asked to vacate the land. They have their own homes, and they are advised we would assist with the moving of the house. And of course, the land is not free. We can't offer the land for free. So this is a program that NHC has engaged in over the years. And I would ask the CLO firstly to Ms. Henrietta Boneford to speak on this.
Thank you, Minister. The corporation has been tasked with making every effort to locate lands for persons who have been dispossessed. In some instances, persons may own their own houses, but you may be given a notice to quit by a landlord. There may be social circumstances where you need to remove yourself from the property. What we have been doing, and this is the first time it has been going on for a while at Parish Land, particularly I can speak about that in Christchurch, where we have officers in the field trying to identify any lots that may be available to cater to those persons who have those needs. You have your own house, but you need land either to rent or with the option to purchase. So this is something that we have been placed on the front burner to enfranchise persons. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Chairman. I yield.
Mr. Chair, I wish to correct the chamber. I don't want to put false information out there as it relates to the subsidies. The surveying for the year of these lots which fall under the tenantries, non-plantation and plantation tenantries, there will be 246, at $300,000, 247 lots to be surveyed at $300,000. So I just want to correct that in the chamber. I don't like to put false information out there in the public as it relates to surveying and the subsidies.
Thank you, Honourable Member for St. Michael North.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon to the House and to the Minister and team. Let me congratulate you, Minister, for the tremendous work and, of course, commitment and dedication that you are bringing to your task, leading this challenging ministry. I have 3 questions, basically, but the first one relates to St. Michael North, of course. What are the planned housing solutions that the people of St. Michael North can expect in the not so distant future? That may be the best way to put it. I don't want to put a timeline on it, but in the not so distant future. You would know, Minister, that your team and I would have worked assiduously to clear a site where the old Kelsey's Mini Mart sat, and you and I have spoken with reference to plans for that. So I would love for you to be able to share what are your thoughts and your team's thoughts relative to any planned housing solutions for St. Michael North. I must say here as well that my team and I have embarked on the exercise of identifying some vacant government land, some vacant public spots across the length and breadth of the constituency. And I have those coordinates that I'm pulling together in a letter that I will send off to your attention. And I'm hoping that it will be as easy as dropping a house on each of those spots I have identified for the people of St. Michael North. So I'm looking to hear from you the planned housing solutions for St. Michael North.
Yes, Honourable Member. We were just here saying to make sure that that is all government land that you have tagged. And you're truly utilizing the digital parcel fabric to identify the lands. All right, but I'm going to allow the Chief Planning Officer for National Housing to speak on the plans for your constituency, because I know they have been visiting and we have done some designs, so I will allow him to speak.
Good afternoon, Chair. Ray Millard, Chief Planning Officer, National Housing Corporation. With respect to the Kelsey site, yes, we have cleared that off and we're preparing to do a quad unit there. And we were looking at doing it earlier, but we were going through a process of examining some different building technologies that we wanted to test in terms of the production of the quad. So we have looked back at that, and we should be sometime this week or early next be able to put that bid into the bonfire system, and we'll settle on the type of building construction that we are going to use. So we should be able to have that quad built that is going to be similar to what you see at Allen's Court or the other areas around Barbados. So that one will be done. In terms of the wider community, well, not so much in St. Michael North, but the whole of St. Michael, we are very much looking back through our land banks, our land system, to see what lots that are vacant. You have heard the Minister speak to earlier about the vacant lots, that program that we're looking at, to see where we can acquire some lands or get some lands so we can do some housing. You would admit that those areas that you serve, sir, are actually fairly dense in terms of housing, and vacant lots are a premium. So we're looking across that kind of band. The idea is that we think we should be able to impact on the housing needs in those areas using those areas. If you do find, you said, some vacant lands belong to the Crown, and we're certain they're the Crown's, we can always look at it and produce particular plans to meet the needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to hear about the quad. Maybe if you come back in with my next question, you may be able to explain to the people of St. Michael North what the quads really are, and that may give them some more clarity. But beyond that, I'm grateful to hear that. And I have been working with Mr. McCollin directly on this particular initiative, so I have identified for sure government lands for you. So I'm going to be sending that list to you, Minister, in short order. My second question relates to maintenance again, and I know that we have discussed maintenance from the perspective of responsibility, if it is the National Housing Corporation responsibility, and in context where it may be the residents' responsibility. But I want to speak relative to what I consider to be urgent maintenance issues. Urgent maintenance issues. I still have within St. Michael North some residents who have asbestos present within their homes. I have persons who have significant structural issues So we're talking massive foundational cracks, ceiling roof cracks, and people being flooded out when the rain falls, etc. And of course, we know that the estates are quite aged, so you would expect that there will be significant wear and tear on these buildings. But to me, some of these matters are a little bit more urgent than cosmetic. And I must say to you that there are some instances where we have mold that is obviously generating as a result of the moisture seeping into some of the soft stone and different things like that. So in my mind, I'm just asking, is there a distinction within the Ministry of Housing relative to more urgent maintenance matters, even if you want to call them emergency maintenance matters, and how are those actually dealt with from an operational perspective? When the client makes that request to you, how is it activated? Who assesses? How quickly are the assessments done? So not so much high level, but actually day to day, how are maintenance matters, especially of an urgent matter, how are they dealt with?
Let me go straight to the Chief Estate Officer who dealt with a similar matter earlier today, and I'm going to ask him to expand or to repeat some of what he said earlier today. Mr. William Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Minister. William Clark, Chief Estates Officer, Acting National Housing Corporation. The question of the urgent repairs to some of the houses, particularly in Eden Lodge, we've done quite a bit of investigations on those homes, and we've started to carry out repairs on some of them. We recognize the issues that are involved, and quite often, though, these problems exist for quite a long time. And we have to be able to rectify them one by one. Hence, the plans that we have in place are going to be looking at how best those could be done. You speak primarily about the issue relating to how these matters are addressed. Well, once an issue is called into the contact center, we take that information and it is addressed, it is logged. Within 24 hours, 48 hours, someone will come out to assess the problem, and then having done that, we look to see how we can prioritize the repairs to that particular issue. We are aware that there are some of those houses that are very old in that area. We are aware of those problems, but we also recognize too that there is a bit of issue in relation to some where it is not possible at the moment to be able to carry out repairs, particularly in the plumbing area with some. For example, to repair those plumbing issues, it would mean we put old pipes onto new pipes, and that has been a problem. So right now we are looking to see how we can work that out by starting to replace the entire plumbing structure so that in due time, you will not have those repairs being degraded. But we are aware of the problem. Yes, we are working assiduously to get as many of them as possible done, but of course it's going to take some time. But we are working to have that rectified.
Okay, thank you very much. And I must congratulate and thank as well Mr. Padmore from your team, who has been doing a lot of work within the estate, the Eden Lodge estate in particular, and obviously improving and upgrading the circumstances of the people who live there. So thank you for the hard work that you guys are doing in that regard. I note your 24 to 48 hours in terms of an assessment after a calling. So my people are going to be happy to hear that quick turnaround time when it comes at least to an assessment by one of your members. The last question, Minister, relates to the electrical upgrades. You spoke about it in your intro, and I want to give you the opportunity. What was missing from your delivery so far on this particular point would have been timelines. Now, I know that this project has been going on for quite some time, and I have across not only my Eden Lodge estate, but of course in the Grisettes area in particular, I would have written to you guys very recently at the beginning of this year to make note of the fact that the Grisettes estate housing units have not benefited from the electrical upgrade project or program as yet. At least in Eden Lodge, many of the units have already been converted fully. Some of them are pending. Many of them are pending. So I would love to know where we are relative to those two estates, and how quickly can the people of Grisettes be able to be beneficiaries of at least the beginning phases of the electrical upgrade project. If you have any general timelines relative to these two things, I'll be very much appreciative.
Before I hand over to the Deputy General Manager, Mr. Roger Ward, I would say, looking at our estimates here and the plan from NHC, Grisettes, which is a 1957 estate, you have some 240 units. To tell you that we'll do all of these units, we have budgeted to do in this year 664 units, and you are part of that 664. But I would allow Mr. Ward to speak on the rollout plan. But I can see here, year 2025, 2026, Grisettes, a 1957 estate, 240 units, and the cost to upgrade your units are $1.92 million. And the total cost to upgrade the 664 unit is $5.312 million. I would love to accomplish all. This NHC has been budgeted $9 million from the consolidated fund in the estimates, and 3.5 of this relates to sewage upgrade and electrical upgrade, and the other 5.5 goes to operations. So let me ask the Deputy General Manager to come in, and if he wants to add on what I said earlier, he can do that. So over to you, the Deputy General Manager, Mr. Roger Ward.
Good evening again to the House. My name is Roger Ward, Acting Deputy General Manager. Thank you for your query, Honourable Member. With respect to Eden Lodge, we are in the process of completing the electrical upgrades there. Of the 353, I think we've completed 312. The other 41 are currently under the works of the contractors. And with respect to Grisettes, Grisettes is scheduled within the finance period 25-26. Actually, we have it scheduled as long as the first tranche of the funding is made available in April. Those works will commence in April. I cannot promise you that all 240 can be completed by the end of the financial year, but we will do our best to address as many as we can. But certainly, we have not forgotten Grisettes. Those works are scheduled and will commence April this year, 2025.
Let me thank you so much, Minister, and your team for that good news. The people of Grisettes will be very happy to hear and I'm very grateful. Thank you so much for the responses to your questions, and continue to do the excellent work on behalf of the people of Barbados. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Honourable Member for Christchurch West Central.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hope, Minister, that by the end of this conversation, you'll be able to show Barbadians the multifaceted nature of your ministry, what I would call the diversity of your ministry. And I want to go straight in your land administration and modernization program, which speaks to you using geospatial technology, geospatial science, in order to map not only land spaces, but allow other departments, private sector, to be able, using an efficient new technological system, to be able to do the business and realize their business. The use in geospatial science is well renowned. Geographical mappings along with identifications. I think that it is very modern, very breakthrough. And it allows my ministry, for instance, the NHD, EPD, the Ministry of Health and the QEH in terms of allocating mappings for staff, is using emergency purposes, the postal services, a whole gamut of persons and departments. I want you to be able to explain to Barbadians how this new technology and this new program that you have had in that you have initiated in your ministry, how does this advance your work and advance the work, obviously, of other departments, whether private or public? Thank you.
Minister, you are now going into the technical side of the ministry, and I know this is in your, what we will term in the country, in your briar patch. Deal with the member for St. Joseph would understand that term. When you go in somebody briar patch, that's in the bosom, and the member for St. Thomas as well, in the briar patch of this ministry, and we recognize that there are several geospatial initiatives, GIS initiatives that have been implemented, including one that you have benefited from recently within the Environmental Protection Department, the derelict buildings and vehicles reporting app. It is a mobile app that can locate, pinning the location on a digital map. You can use a voice note or type in directions to this location, and the users were able to input photos to supplement their submissions. And you were able at EPD to respond, to find these vehicles and also the derelict buildings. But I would love to go further and ask some of the technical team here, the Land Administration Modernization Program, which will leverage geospatial data driven by several different paving the way for lands and surveys, as well as other agencies, to modernize the public services that are related to mapping and spatial data, forcing meaningful citizens' engagement. The digital parcel fabric I would like to start with first, and I would like to ask Ms. Michelle Sinclair, land surveyor within the Office of Lands and Surveys, to speak to us on some of the geospatial work that they have done. The story must be told also that this division received one of the highest awards recently, the Barbados Public Service Excellence Award, for its transformative efforts in modernizing services, enhancing efficiency, and setting a benchmark for innovation within the public service. So I would like to invite Ms. Michelle Sinclair first, and then I would ask Mr. Paul Collymore to speak on the Barbados Building Identifier, to educate the public and this chamber on the good work that is being done by the Lands and Surveys Division, not only for them, but for the public service and for the wider Barbados. So over to you, Ms. Sinclair.
Good afternoon. Michelle Sinclair, Land Surveyor, Lands and Surveys Department. The National Digital Parcel Fabric is a digital representation, a digital map of the approximately 127,000 land tax parcels in Barbados. The project was conceptualized to support the modernization of land management and to improve the collaboration between agencies by allowing us to integrate the land-related databases. And that is for agencies including the Planning and Development Department, the Ministry of Housing, and the Barbados Revenue Authority. We can overlay other data to have an interactive and searchable platform that is used by many agencies through our dashboard to ensure more robust searching and improved decision-making. For the parcel fabric to maintain its value, data must remain current and reflect changes in our landscape due to subdivisions and development. And so the Lands and Surveys Department has sought to incorporate maintenance of the parcel fabric into our current work program moving forward.
Mr. Cullimore, the Barbados Building Identifier, this is a wonderful work that's being done in this ministry, and the technical persons must get the opportunity to speak on it.
Good afternoon, everybody. Paul Cullimore, Manager Information Systems, Lands and Surveys Department. The Barbados Building Identifier is a homegrown application that has mapped every structure, and we have assigned it an alphanumeric 6-digit building identification code. This allows the user to get directions directly to a specific structure, whether it is a house or commercial building. This works somewhat like sending a Google pin, but you don't have to be tech savvy. You don't have to have a smart device to share your location or any other location. The everyday citizen can give the Barbados Building ID to the person delivering their goods without using a smart device and have them come directly to their intended location. This can assist emergency services to locate you, especially when time is of the essence. This can also be used to assist a new postman with finding a specific house where there are several houses on one parcel of land. It is already being used by the EPD, Environmental Protection Department, and we are in discussions with several other private and state agencies on how they can incorporate it in their services for the public.
Let me just add here to this in layman terms. This is similar to Google Maps. I don't want to say it is Google Maps because you need a telephone to utilize Google Maps. But with the Barbados Building Identifier, all you need is a 6-digit building identification code that you can give to any person. Say, for instance, the ambulance was trying to find the Lord forbid, the member for Christchurch South. I don't want anything to happen to you. Or the member for St. Michael North. And you have this building identifier code. They can't find you. You can give them your code. And once your code is in the system, they can locate you. You know, numerous occasions, Barbados Fire Service, you know, they're going to a fire and they can see the flames, but they can't get to the location because they don't know how to navigate the roads. This app will allow, this mobile app will allow all the services, the ambulance services, the Barbados Postal Service, all the services within the public sector and also private to access persons in a meaningful way. It will not replace Google app because you need mobile phone to utilize the Google Maps. So persons without mobile phones can utilize this app. And indeed, this is revolutionary. I just wanted to add that to the discussion, to what the land surveyor, Mr. Cullimore, would have said.
Minister, finally, we have had some issues over the last couple of years with buildings in terms of mold and fungi. We had issues as it relates to building syndromes. You know it. What is your ministry doing to ensure that there is safe, healthy accommodation for persons that will fall under your remit, and obviously others in the public sector?
Thank you, sir. We know over the last 3 to 4 years, the sick building syndrome has crept in on us. And it's basically due to poor environmental conditions within our buildings. But I would want to allow the Deputy Property Manager, Mr. Brian Hines, because I know he has been on the forefront of addressing sick building syndromes and bringing environmental specialists and addressing some of the volatile organic compounds that they've been using that impact respiratory, that leads to respiratory problems, cleaning agents. faulty AC conditions, water ingress. So I would allow him to take the floor, the opportunity to tell us, you know, what were some of the challenges and how we intend to address them. So over to you, Mr. Hines.
Thank you, Minister. Good afternoon. My name is Brian Hines. I'm Senior Property Manager at the Ministry of Housing. Over the last 3 to 4 years, we've had a number of issues occurring within government-owned and privately rented accommodations that house government offices. The Ministry of Housing has taken this very seriously because the health and safety of all the occupants and visitors to these buildings are very important. The ministry is currently conducting a complete assessment of all the properties it owns as well as the ones it rents. There's currently a tender being closed shortly where a number of professionals within the island is conducting detailed surveys of all the offices. And we are also receiving assistance from CAF. They've given us a grant of approximately $414,000 US to assist with the cost of this exercise. And they're also willing and able to provide us with technical assistance where we have deficiencies in certain areas. One of the things that coming out of this we've found is that some of the practices that we engage in within the building environments are directly responsible for some of the mold growth. Some of it speaks to lack of maintenance, water ingress, inefficient air conditioning systems that have allowed extremely high relative humidity to exist within the building environment, which provides a very good base for mold to grow and thrive in. So we are working at implementing systems that will be able to measure and alert us to conditions that are not conducive for proper occupancy, and will also alert us to areas where we need to pay special attention to maintenance. Currently, the ministry is looking to employ technology to help us with this in terms of keeping track of our maintenance and our scheduling. We've had some preliminary discussions with the MIST with regards to whether we will be looking at a off-the-shelf or a purpose-built asset management system to help us with our maintenance. And this is also part of the program of which CAF will be helping us going forward.
Let me just add, he's absolutely correct. They've engaged environmentalists such as the Environmental and Property Management Services, Inc. And the government of Barbados, we have secured grant funding in the sum of $414,000 US from CAF to assist in this exercise. And the bank has also indicated possibility also of providing technical assistance to assist us with these challenges. So it's work in progress, Minister, and I hope we have answered your question. There's no one-day fix to this problem. It is just to go in and do the right thing within these buildings to stop water ingress within certain aspects of the buildings, because we know what happened, what can cause mold to enter into buildings.
Thank you, Minister.
Honourable Member for St. Philip South.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon to everyone. Minister Weiss, I would like to join in congratulating you. I think time does not permit me to get into very much detail, but I'll get straight to home ownership providing energy, which is a model that I believe has provided an opportunity using renewable energy for Barbadians, middle class and working class Barbadians,
to have access to housing solutions at a price that is very affordable, because the price of the house is not really the real issue. The issue is in Hope being able to enter into a SPV, a special purpose vehicle, to allow for the roof of the house to generate energy into the grid, allowing Hope to be able to earn its profits. Minister, is this the model being employed by Hope? And is this the reason why we Hope can afford to sell housing to working class and middle class Barbadians at a very affordable price?
Honourable member, I said earlier to the member for St. Michael Southeast, you know, she seemed to be in this ministry, but you too, you've been very articulate in putting it over. But I would allow the chairman of Hope at this stage, because I think respect is due to the chairman. Those whoever else don't want to respect him, they can choose not to, but respect is due to the chairman to tell the country and articulate the process which will lead to ordinary Barbadians owning their home. I have done it, and perhaps the honourable member for Christchurch South wants to hear from the chairman of Hope, and I will allow him to speak at this stage. Over to you, Mr. Colin Scaife.
Thank you. Colin Scaife, Chairman of Hope. So just to touch on something the Minister mentioned in his opening remarks, the identification of 550 acres of land. That's the start of the pipeline for Hope. That equates to 28 sites around the island, which will be developed in a progressive manner going forward. The idea with those, and if I just take you through a few of the ones which we're active on right now. So Concordia St. Philip, infrastructure's installed. We're now completing the conveyance of the land to Hope from NHC, and that will be being launched in terms of sales in the coming months. Colleton St. Lucie, also well advanced in terms of infrastructure. This will also be coming to the market in the foreseeable future. We've also identified other priority sites that the government would like us to move on. The relaunch of Paul North, Gingerworks Branchbury, and the Lower Burney site that was mentioned earlier. In addition to those, we have Guinea St. John, Ebenezer St. Philip, and Searles Christchurch. So these are the priority sites that are going to be coming through the process, whether it's planning approval, infrastructure design, infrastructure construction, but it will get through to a point where we have the ability to execute mortgages. And when the Minister talks about the industrial process is the ability to use the mortgages to finance the construction through stage payments. So that's the plan moving forward in terms of expansion of Hope, and this will be floated into the other 25 sites that are becoming made available to us from government. Now, the point on the PV system, we've been very active in discussions with Light and Power and the Ministry of Energy on this, and it's clear that there'll be a resolution shortly. Nobody's currently accessing power purchase agreements or indeed licenses for PV systems. So this will be resolved very shortly. And the fact is that in the Vespera project, we've already executed rooftop leases for all of the houses that have been sold there, and we'll continue to do this. And this creates the opportunity for the value creation once the PV systems can be licensed and we can sell power back to the grid. And that is how we are able to reduce the cost of offset the overall development costs and keep costs to a minimum. An example of that would be our first project that's coming to market, which would be Concordia and Dodds, where we're able to get total development costs down at around about the $300 a square foot rate. And then after government subsidies, we're able to get the cost down to between $230 and $240, depending on the unit type. So I think this is what the scheme has in store for us. You're going to see a lot of activity in terms of sales and project launches in the coming months, and I think the future looks bright.
Thank you, Chairman Scaife.
Just Chair, bear with me just for a follow-up. Minister, you are aware that, and I'm pretty familiar with Carpenter's Glade, which is the area where I grew up. Most of the people who are attracted to that area are particularly from working class Barbados. It's in the constituency of my colleague, St. Philip North. And you're saying to me that these people now, who ordinarily would have struggled to own a house, can now get a house through home ownership, providing energy at a price that is affordable to them because your recoup of your profits will come from the renewable energy on the rooftop.
I will allow Mr. Scaife to carry on.
Yes, that is the model indeed. So if we think about the cost of the infrastructure and the land, then the PV revenues in the future are compensating the government over a 20-year lease to recover not only the cost of the PV, but the land and the infrastructure. So that's that revenue stream. And then beyond that, then the homeowner takes ownership of the system themselves and they benefit in the long term. So it's a win-win.
What Mr. Scaife said that the last 5 years, after paying for the infrastructure and the land through the PV, there's still some leverage for the homeowners, a 5-year period to benefit from selling the electricity back to the grid. So we will hand it back to them after it is paid for the land and the infrastructure. That's the model that he's speaking to, that I spoke to earlier.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is a very powerful model that is designed to enfranchise and empower our working class and middle class people. It is an ingenious approach to housing, and I really commend the Minister and his team for such a project.
Honourable Member for St. Philip North.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to get right to the point as always. In considering the time, 3 questions. Which order? Okay. One is a question from a constituent of mine. She had severe damage. Almost the entire house was damaged in the last hurricane, I believe, and housing was kind enough to rebuild. My issue, and it is my issue as well as the family's issue, they began with a 3-bedroom house. The house has about 6 people in it, 3-bedroom house, and it was built back as a 2-bedroom home. The problem is they would like to extend, obviously, because it can no longer accommodate what it previously accommodated, would like to extend the building, but we're told, which I think is a bit unfair, but I don't know the law, that they were not allowed to touch the house or the roof for another 10 years. And that was brought to mind because it came out earlier about illegal bills on government housing. What is the real solution for this? I consider 10 years to be too much. You could get another 2 children with nowhere to put them by then. The Honourable Member is laughing, but that's just a fact. So what is the solution? Would that 10 years remain as it is, where they can do nothing on the house, including the roof? What is the situation on that?
The Honourable Member probably laughed in acknowledgement that it's the truth. And I agree with you. A 3-bedroom, when we went into the Hurricane Elsa project, if we found a 3-bedroom house destroyed, you got back a 3-bedroom house. So I am going to hand over to the General Manager of NHC and ask him to discuss this, or you can probably see him, but I will allow him to speak on this, because that was the model. You find someone with a 3-bedroom house is destroyed, you replace it with a 3-bedroom house. So this is sounding a bit, surprising to me. But over to you, General Manager Gill, to speak on this matter.
Thank you, Minister. Ian Gill, General Manager, National Housing Corporation. I think what happened in that case is it was the square footage of the house. I'm not aware of the issue that you're speaking to, but I know that there were other issues that came up at that time. And in some cases, some people had a 700 square feet or 800 square feet house. And as you know, we're in Barbados, some people have smaller bedrooms, so she may have had a 3-bedroom house in a 700 square feet space. But our approval is for a 700 square feet space with a 2-bedroom house. I think that was one of the issues, and you had to build to the specifications that you were sent off to the town planning session. So I think that is what happened there.
What I can assure you, the honourable member for St. Philip North, we're not going to allow this matter to die here. I would want to go back to the office and discuss this matter, and also visit the homeowner. Helping every last person is our mantra as a government. So we will have a conversation on this, and I would expect that the team, even if I have to lead the team, we will visit St. Philip North to address this matter, or see how we can bring some level of comfort or resolution to this situation. I am a bit uncomfortable with what I'm hearing. That's the truth.
You know to whom you're speaking, so I will definitely follow up with you on that. It's on the same footprint as far as I can tell, but I think to hold somebody, and I use the word ransom, for 10 years, not being able to adjust their household is a little bit, I don't want to use the term ridiculous, but I will, ridiculous. My next question is surrounding, and I think I came up with this before, and everybody else has to, the prospect of housing put in the side areas for emergency housing. Thank you. I know you're happy to have me ask for emergency housing. Question arising not only from those who had problems at home and really want to have their own roof, but recently, and you may not remember, but I have brought it to your attention, the environment in which we live now, we are seeing a lot of homeowners losing their homes because they cannot complete their mortgages. I have more than necessary, more than I need actually in St. Philip North. And one in particular obviously was asked to move. His income is not enough to buy a house as yet, but his income is enough to have a, well, regular house in terms of regular income, but he had enough to purchase a low income. He went ahead of me, of course, and it was told to him, and I can't use this as any proof, that there was space for a particular unit that he was willing to pay for. But when I called, that was null and void, and after that, I could do nothing for him. And you know how the MPs are blamed for these things. Going forward, what is our plan for emergency housing, short-term housing, if you will?
Very good question, and you know, we have met on numerous occasions within the last, I would say, 6 months, because we recognize with the number of fires that we are seeing, fires, please, across Barbados, persons being displaced, we don't have enough rental units. And I dare to say we don't have any free rental units at this stage. Remember for St. Michael West, remember for the city, they can attest, because these are the gentlemen that I speak to. Remember for St. Michael's Southeast also, with respect to Valerie and persons, who want to get a rental unit. Emergency housing though, in our view, and the member for St. Michael's South, he can speak to this, the social scientist in the room and the member who has responsibility for that ministry. Emergency housing relates to emergency, not to go in and spend 5 years, 10 years. Emergency when you have an emergency. It is supposed to be a rolling stock of housing that we build to accommodate persons who have challenges. They're put on the road, they had fires, and families. We have started the process though. We have just acquired Warwell House on White Park Road, and the member for the city, you will not get all. It's emergency housing, even though it is in the city. Persons from St. Philip who had a fire and who wish to be relocated temporarily until they can, make their way, we can utilize World House. In addition to that, the Ministry of People Empowerment and Allied Affairs, the two permanent secretaries and the chief property manager, along with the ministers, we have identified some lands, and I would allow the chief property manager to speak, and then the director of emergency housing, Ms. Kelly Hunt. So over to the chief property manager first, because we have to allow people to know what is happening within the ministry and who the officers are that are indeed championing the cause on a daily basis for the working class people and everyone in this country. So over to the chief property manager.
Before you respond, officer, I'm asking you to, all of you, including the officers and the honorable members of parliament, to be very precise and direct with your responses, as we have to accommodate a number of other persons who wish to speak, so we have to keep it extremely tight. Thank you.
Dexter Mondesir, Acting Chief Property Manager, Ministry of Housing, Lands and Maintenance. Thank you, Minister. The Ministry has identified a number of sites across the island and a number of existing state-owned properties or buildings that will be repurposed to be utilized for emergency housing. And to name a few of those sites, we have Sherman's in St. Peter, Rubble House, as the Minister had mentioned earlier. Rubble House is located in the White Park Road, St. Michael area. Sterling in St. Philip. St. Lucie has been identified as one of the locations for emergency housing, as well as Haggett's in St. Andrew. Thank you.
Sorry, sir, through you, Chairman, did I hear anywhere in the country, St. Philip, St. John, St. George?
Sterling was mentioned.
Sterling was mentioned.
Sterling, okay. Follow up, this is not my third question to that though. With emergency housing, we say short-term accommodation, which is, I'm not sure how long is short-term accommodation. But if I had my house that is burnt down, I'm still working though, so there's a possibility I would get out of it. But I don't have the funding to buy a house immediately. Would there be low-income housing available? Perhaps, I know your list is what, 20,000 applicants? And they have been waiting for many years, but is there or will there be a facility for those who have lost their house through fire or in this case I'm speaking, of which I'm speaking, through not being able to commit to their mortgage? Will that person be placed on that list that sometimes I have people that are waiting for 10 years to get housing or more? So would there be put on a separate list, I don't know how to put it, but put to expedite the process where they can seek housing a little faster than those who are already living at home and just want to get a house on their own? Is that one of the plans?
FM hear you correctly, Honourable Member. You mentioned someone whose house is burnt down and they're looking to not acquire the house immediately, but to get some form of rental until they can acquire the house, but they are working. And if I'm hearing you correctly, that will fall into what we have as the rent-to-own program, where the person would be able to afford some equity in a home, renting, to own their own home, because like you said, they will be in a position to later on, I don't know whether after 5 years, 7 years, whatever, to own the home, be able to own the home. So they can fall into what we call the rent-to-own program. Yes, I mentioned social housing, but there are definitely persons who would come into social housing programs, and after 6 months, they will rebuild their own homes, or they will buy a home. So that's why I said, emergency housing, is more of a short-term program, and the Honourable Member for St. Michael South can correct me if I'm wrong. rather than we having persons coming into the emergency housing program to spend 30 years more so than acquire their own home or have something to rent. The rolling stock should be there in the event of an emergency. That's why the name emergency. But from what I'm hearing, we can fulfill your request in River Crescent. We have some 30 Joe homes up there, and we can make one or a few of these homes affordable on a rent-to-own basis, which is close to you in St. Philip North, actually. And I will encourage you to come and visit with us and allow that person to come and see what we can do for them, because honestly speaking, I know you don't raise situations unless they are critical, and I will want to assist you, Honourable Member for St. Philip North.
Thank you very much. I really look forward to that. It didn't quite answer my question, but I can move on. I will move on. The final inquiry, is regarding the Chinese houses. I haven't heard it come up for the day, but I can't say a constituent of St. Philip North, but a dear friend of mine that lives on the border of my constituency, who was very grateful, and I was, because I helped push the whole situation for her getting the Chinese house after her house was destroyed by hurricane. And the house, and I've seen it myself, the house is more rust than house. She's walking in the middle of the night with pipes spontaneously bursting, house flood out. The floorboards, you can fall through them. The fixtures fall in and fall on the floor. I am aware, obviously, hence the name Chinese houses, that the Chinese delegation or whoever came in to fix and I assume maintain the houses. Going forward, what is the plan for these houses? Because she, like I am, I'm fairly scared that she would end up spending a lot of money. Not that she's not grateful. These people are very grateful. But at the same time, they want something that's livable. And as you said earlier, they can pass on to their relatives going forward. Will the Chinese, are we have the locals, and I think the answer was yes, but please confirm, I'm not so sure. Have our local craftsmen been trained in terms of upkeep and maintenance of these houses? And if not, what is the plan going forward for maintenance? The house is in such a state, I almost want to say rebuild, but what is the plan going forward in maintenance for such a young house that is rusting? It's actually full of rust, all of it. Thanks.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Member, we have, and I'm going to give the whole gambit of the houses. We have 117 of these houses here. We have had problems with one or two of them, not many of them. We have persons who 23 Hurricane Elsa victims living in these houses. We have some other persons living in them across the country who have had good experiences. The structure, in our view, is very good, very sound. When you travel around Barbados, I can send you now down to Wanstead and you can see a structure, send you to St. George, and these are persons who have purchased these type of houses outside of the East-West, but from China, the same type of house. What the issue there may be the quality of finishing. And whenever we see a situation like that, the Chinese would come in and they would address it. So I would ask the team to visit the Director of Emergency Housing, who this program fall under when it first started for Hurricane Elsa victims. We recently had a challenge at Hackett Hall where not the roof, a roof is different to a ceiling. Ceiling fell in because of the clips that were supposed to secure the ceiling. Again, I don't know whose fault it is, whether it was one of the locals because they were the first set of houses that the locals worked on, and we don't see that across the length and breadth of Barbados. So I am prepared with the team. I would ask the Director of Emergency Housing with a team to visit, and I'm sorry that this was not drawn to my attention before, or the attention of the Permanent Secretary, so we could have addressed this, a long time ago. But these are things that can be fixed. I suspect it's the quality of the finishes. They all, from what I see, there are some that the quality of finishing were superior to the others. And these are some of the things that occurred on this project. I spoke on it, and some members may say, I am the poster boy, like they want to say, but I am not the poster boy. I understand engineering very well, and I understand structures, and I can tell you when a structure is poor from when it is sound. It has nothing to do with the structure. It has to do with the quality of the finishing. And if we have to change it on behalf of the tenant, we will do that. So again, I have two things to address for you. And we'll do the audit. We did one on the houses at Haggett Hall, and we also did one on the houses at Solaris Court, as well as the houses at Coconut Hall. And in my view, these houses are good houses for the ordinary man. And they have been built certainly at half the price of $650 per square foot. And they are serving a purpose. The fire victims from Wellington Street, the 5 families, they're happy. The Hurricane Elsa victims, member for St. Michael Southeast, they too are happy. Most of them are comfortable in these houses. And I will make sure, Honourable Member, that we address this problem for you frontally. And if the finishes are of poor quality, we'll have those finishes changed, those fixtures and cladding or flooring boards changed.
Thank you, Honourable Member. You've made at least 3 promises to me today. I just want to say, ending with respect to the Chinese houses, it's always well and good to say that who is happy and how many are happy, but as everything else, that's what makes news. There's always the set, and she's not disgruntled. The truth is, the walls of the house are actually rusting. I have seen it myself. I go there every month or so. The walls on the outside are actually rusting. The floorboards or whatever that is made of is loose. But I look forward to your engaging. I'm always willing and ready. It's not too far from where I work. So any time of day, just let me know. I thank you. That brings to the end of my, well, not all, but most of my questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Honourable Member for St. John.
Thank you, Chair. 3 quick questions, Minister. 1, the whole project at Pool, can you provide some information in relation to the status about that? Because they have a lot of small people running around in St. John taking videos and posting them. You know about that? So for clarity, just when the restart is to be?
I'll allow the Chairman of Hope to speak on that, but the restart is very soon, so I will give him the opportunity to speak on it.
Thank you, Minister. So we will have a draft conveyance from Res Life for the transfer of that land to Hope by the end of the week. The planning permission's been secured. So with those 2 major milestones achieved, we'll be able to restart infrastructure with a view to a sales launch very shortly.
The Honourable Member for Christchurch South, did you hear him? Okay. Okay, you didn't hear. Okay. You need me to repeat?
Honourable.
You need me to repeat for you?
Honourable Member.
Okay.
The question came from the Honourable Member for St. John. Direct your responses to him. Thank you.
You're fine? You're fine?
He will stop these small people from taking pictures.
Second
question, Minister. At the same location, I have some residents downwind that are being impacted by coverage. Any idea how soon we can have that area cleared?
You're speaking with, sorry, I was distracted.
The same Hope project, Minister.
Okay, the clearing. I will allow Mr. Skiff to speak on Hope. Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't catch the question.
Okay, there's a lot of overgrown grass, including coverage, that is impacting residents. I need to have the area clean. Can you say how soon?
Okay, thank you for alerting us. We'll get somebody straight onto that. Thank you. I said thank you for alerting us. We'll make sure that's dealt with immediately.
Minister, my last question is in relation to the two areas that were identified when I was at the ministry for urban development. One in Sherburne, the other one in Cherry Grove. Can you speak to the possibility of these two areas being developed?
Mr. Lord, in the interest of time, Chief Planning Officer, please.
Raymond Lord, Chief Plan Officer, the Cherry Grove, you said the Cherry Grove, just repeat that for me quickly, sir.
Cherry Grove.
Cherry Grove, and the other one was two. The Cherry Grove site, we have looked at that. I think that is included in the matrix. As well, we include that in the matrix for the land acquisition. Because, again, that was a linear site, but I think we've looked like possibility of expanding it and take a bit more land there. So we are looking at that within the context of the land matrix that we have done. So the other one you looked at, I think, was the one on the other side of Poole.
Sherburne Main Road.
Sherburne Main Road. That is connected to the lands, I think, that were under the
same
Westlife matter. So the National House is not engaged at that aspect of it. I think when that area is settled out with the same matter, our colleague from this culture, Ms. Care, for speaking up, we should be able to look back at that site again and look at that, put that back into the housing matrix.
Any timelines?
I think that is connected to what colleague Scaife was saying with the resolution matter. We wouldn't want to pin that down right now. We can pin that down as of when. But when that matter is settled, we should be able to include that in the broader housing matrix. You will be pleased to know that you do have lands allocated at Colleton, St. John in the housing matrix. And we're also looking again at a smaller parcel and the area of Gall Hill again to look back to add some more lands to St. John in the housing matrix.
All right, thank you, Chair. I yield back.
Honourable Member for St. Peter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I am conscious of the time and will say that I'd like to engage, not now, but I'm going to say it publicly because my constituents were really expecting to hear something about it. I'm a little bit confused as to the matter of transfer of units. I have a small, comparatively small estate in Maynards. And I know that there are a number available for transfer that have not been transferred. And I like, not know, but to know what is happening with the others that are eligible for transfer to the residents who really want to have possession of them. The question I have relates to 6 Mines. And while my constituents believe me, they have expressed that they would like to hear from either the minister or one of his senior officers to receive some kind of information as to what the process is likely to be that will allow them to realize something that they've been dreaming about since the early 1970s, something that is affecting their ability to develop themselves and their relatives and take ownership of the lands that they've been on. So we just want, and I say we because I speak on behalf of the residents of 6 Mines in this regard. We want to have some kind of information, not through me this time, but directly from the horse's mouth.
Thank you, Honourable Member. This tenantry falls on the National Housing Corporation and not the main ministry. And while I have some knowledge of it, I would allow between the Chief Planning Officer, Mr. Raymond Lord, and the Chief Legal Officer, because I know work
is being done. I think they're at the stage of surveying, and I would allow them to let you know the timelines. So over to the chief planning officer and the chief legal officer. I'm not sure which one will go first.
Thank you, Chair. What I can say is that originally the National Housing Corporation was involved in the initial project to pull those lands for and do the subdivision work. The ministry worked with us, and I think the chief housing planner has taken over that aspect of the project. She may be able to give a bit more clarity on it, because there's an active project in subdividing that land, working to put that land into about 3 blocks, if I remember correctly, to allow for the conveyances and under the Tenantry freehold purchase that to be done. So Minister, allow my colleague, Mrs. Johnson, to add some light.
Good evening, Nicole Johnson, Chief Housing Planner, Ministry of Housing, Lands and Maintenance. The ministry has started the surveying of 80 lots at 6 Mains in St. Peter under this current financial year. And for the next financial year, we are going to be looking at completing the surveying of the remaining 145 lots, which will enable those tenants at 6 Mains St. Peter to gain access to their lands. Thank you.
Go ahead, Honourable Member. I guess you're fine.
So thank you very much, and I'm happy to hear. I just want to be clear on the information. 80 lots have been surveyed so far, and there are 145 more to be surveyed. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. 40 are currently in progress. 80, are currently in progress, and the remaining 145 have been scheduled for this financial year.
Okay, so I need a little clarity then on what in progress means.
These surveyors are actually in the field at 6 Mains working.
Okay, so
Surveying
they're
the lots,
being
yes.
surveyed. Okay, is there, given the time being taken on the 80, any indication as to when the process will be complete? And the other part of that query would be, is it the intention of the ministry to await the entire survey before work begins on conveying property?
The 80 are expected to be completed by the end of this financial year, and as soon as those plans have been received, we will forward them to the National Housing Corporation so that they can start the conveyancing process for those persons.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Honourable Member for St. James South.
Thank you very much, Chair. I have just one question, as a number of my questions have been answered already. And it was to get specifically about Henesville, the government units there. I believe when you were answering earlier about the process for releasing them, information was given that houses were assessed as to whether or not they would need repairs before they were passed on. So I just want to know if Henesville has been assessed and how many would be in need of repairs to pass on.
Let me assure you, yes, they were assessed, and I would allow the Deputy General Manager who spearheaded that project. I know Henesville was part of the pilot project that the structural assessments were done, and a report has been submitted, and I would allow the Deputy General Manager and also the project manager, who's the chief engineer within National Housing, because they would have assessed the report. I have knowledge of the report, but I would allow them to speak.
Thank you, Minister. Roger Ward, Deputy General Manager, Acting National Housing Corporation. To respond to the query from the Honourable Member, yes, Henesville was assessed by CEP engineers, chartered engineers. We have that report. We are going through it and assessing the details and the findings of that report. Suffice to say, though, there are some units at Henesville that their resiliency have been put into question by the report, and we are assessing our best approach at this stage on how to resolve those issues. But I would allow my engineer to go into greater details as to the findings in that report.
Good afternoon, Dwight Thornhill, Project Manager at National Housing Corporation. As the Deputy General Manager said, CP would have done a report on different types of units. They have some units there which have concrete roofs. There are 11 blocks, and a lot of the torchon was ripping off as well as some of them were built with clay blocks. So that's what the Deputy General Manager was referring to in terms of the engineering firm had some issues with the structural integrity of those ones which they're assessed. They gave some recommendations of how to carry out the remedial works, and we are presently carrying out a cost-benefit analysis as compared to do the repairs, right? For those units. They also looked at the other units, which are the typical units that they have throughout the estates. You usually find these in the Pine and as well in Belle Plaine as well. And they also suggested some remedial works to carry out to these units to make them structurally sound before they can actually then hand them over through part of the process, as you would have said, to the tenants. So this is well in train.
And this is likely to be done this year? Is it within your budget for this year to address this?
Well, yeah, that was the plan.
Okay.
Honourable Member for St. Michael South Central.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, in 2019, I went on the first of many site visits to a tract of land at Plantation Road with a view. This visit included the Ministry of Housing, the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Transport Works, and at the time, Water Resources, and others. We've since been several times again. A minimal amount of work was started and maintained, and many of the residents of Pine Gardens are grateful that the property has been kept low, that the number of fires and issues with flooding has been reduced, but that was not the ultimate outcome that we had in mind. The ultimate outcome was that we would establish shade houses through the Ministry of Agriculture, that we would also have a park installed. This is since 2019. And that the matter had to be triggered by the vesting of the land by the Ministry of Housing in whatever would be the entity that would take responsibility for the project. I raise this now because the tract of land, while the constituents of Pine Gardens have benefited, the truth is that that land stretches all the way over to the backs of the residences of those residents along Cullimer Rock. You will understand that constituents feel that there might be two St. Michael South Centrals because one set of residents has gotten relief and the others, their property is not being maintained, and there's no long-term plan for how people in Cullimer Rock are going to get relief from the overgrown land. The fact is that there's a health services amendment bill before the Senate right now that's about to be passed that says that we all need to be responsible for the land that we own and for maintaining it. And I would hate to see that the government of Barbados and the Ministry of Housing is breaking its own law. Can you give us some insight on what is happening there, please?
There are two things there, and I will allow the permanent secretary to speak on the whole aspect of the transfer or the vesting of the land in the right authority with respect to the shared houses. But you're right, we have to lead by example, and constantly we are looking at ways in which we can, identify our land. Sometimes I must say to you, there are some areas of Barbados where, I am happy that the digital parcel fabric is in place now so we can identify all of our lands, but we have to find a way to maintain our properties. And if we have to put a charge on ourselves for that, then that must be done to let us know that we have to keep our properties and lead by example. But the whole aspect of the vesting, I would allow the Permanent Secretary to speak to you on that, because he has thorough knowledge of that vesting and as to when or why it wasn't vested. So over to you, Permanent Secretary. And I'm not throwing him under the bus, just that he has the knowledge.
Thank you, Minister. Nikki Smith, Acting Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Housing. The question asked by the Honourable Member is a valid question. We have been a little swamped to get things done. The area at the Pine is to be surveyed so that it can be vested in the BADMC for the particular purpose of having the shared houses put in place. And this is one government entity to another. I would actually like to suggest that because we have been a little slow does not stop the process. In fact, the BADMC, we can have a discussion with them so that they can start placing the shared houses so that when the surveying is done early in the new financial year, the lands can then be vested.
This is meant to be one government that has recently installed senior ministers that are meant to coordinate these things across ministries. I would hate to think that we all sit together all the time and we have to come here to hear that the Ministry of Agriculture could have gone ahead years ago, but we thank you for the answer. I'll move on quickly. Minister, there has been a lot said in your responses today, and I thank you and the officers here for the responses. But I will tell you honestly that while there's been a flood of information, I feel no greater sense of clarity on the overall housing master plan of the government. When I say that, what I mean is there have been a lot of numbers called, this number of houses here and that number of houses there, but as against what target or as against what benchmark? And I'm not asking this to be academic at all. I'm asking this because every week on Wednesday evenings in Tweedside Road, I sit in a constituency clinic to hear from constituents who are genuinely confused about what are the options available to them. They really don't understand between hope, between east-west, between the possibility of rent-to-own, between having land to put houses on, between derelict houses that you're doing an audit of to understand where they do not understand. And I can't help them because I confess to you that I also am not clear on how do I help them understand what are the solutions, person by person by person, that I can send them to. I do hear a lot. I have an application in an NHC for 20 years. And they're not clear. Notwithstanding all the work that you're doing, I think that there must be an effort to make that transparent to the people of Barbados, because otherwise all of your hard work, which I know that you're doing with good intent, will be in vain. Is there some plan to, in one place, on one website, in some clear way, help Barbadians to understand what is available to them, how long they might be expected to wait, what are some of the costs that might attach to some of these? How can people know with certainty what they can expect?
Thank you, member for Christchurch, for St. Michael's South Central. The reality is, you know, we sit and we create plans, and you're right to some extent. If we don't share the plans, or if we don't have the plans out there on a website to show people what we're doing, it becomes an exercise in futility, because we're only speaking to ourselves. Recently, we sat and we discussed the same thing, whereby we have to show the country where we are building houses, what the roll-up plan is, what the designs of the houses will look like, when to expect them. And I will assure you that within 2 months or so, or probably less, you'll see that master plan that we have on paper, showing parish by parish how many lands we have available, how many lands, the 567 lands to be vested in Hope, what is the roll-up plan for Hope. And I must admit, if there's one entity that has shown their master plan, and I expect Hope to be producing this on their website, that's Hope, because Hope has a clear master plan as to how their houses will be built, when they will be built, what the designs of these houses look like, and you are preaching to the converted. So I share your point of view, and I agree with you that we have to show the public the work that we are doing in terms of the master plan. And I am prepared to share with the member for Christchurch South. You can come to the Ministry of Housing, and soon from now you will see it on our website. The Ministry of Housing, National Housing Corporation website should be up within a few months. I don't want to say the date, because the general manager and his team, they are working on it. But you are absolutely right. We should have designs to show people when these houses will be built, where they will be built, what they look like, what the cost is, and a roll-up plan. And you are absolutely correct. And that will happen. That is what we're working on. Not just aspiring to, but working on it.
I look forward to that, Minister. Thank you. My final question, again, is another one of transparency. In 2016, I met a man in Britain's Hill who had indicated that he had applied to, had shown interest in one of the housing units at Valerie in 2016. He never heard anything back. People have moved in and out of the units, several units, including many people from outside of what I would consider the immediate catchment area, including people from areas that boast of having some of the largest housing estates on the island. That man is now living in a container in the area. And thanks perhaps to the kindness of the management eventually of the NHC, who intervened when the officers of the NHC, probably because this is a matter of policy, having discovered that he was living there, flagged to have him removed from the property. Now, this is a man who is, for all intents and purposes, now homeless, having applied 9 years ago to live right up the street from where he has lived for many, many years and where he grew up. You will understand the angst and the sense of disappointment that a person feels that in their own community, they have to live on the street while people come from wherever to occupy units that in their minds should be available to them. Now, this is warm Barbados. So I am not going to suggest that there will never be times when somebody because of fire, because of emergency circumstances, may not have to be located to one of these areas. This is warm Barbados, and I'm not in this business of an MP getting this and an MP getting that. I don't get it. The people of St. Michael's South Central get it, not me. And I would really like us to remove that from our language, because the individual MPs in here do not get things. We represent people. And I pass that man every day trying to live his life in that container. Many years ago, he made an application, and since then, people from all about, by a process that I confess to you, I do not understand, end up permanently in those units. Can you shed some light on that for me?
Member for St. Michael South Central, I share your pain. I understand what you're saying. And perhaps while I don't want to formulate any answers for NHC with respect to why that individual is not in a unit, there may be answers, yes. And I am not sure if the person is working, because NHC's focus, because it's not emergency housing at Valerie, NHC focus would be on placing persons in those units who indeed can pay rent. While I understand where you are coming from, and I would be first to raise my hand to say this gentleman will be accommodated at what's the house name? Worrell House, because that seemed to be an emergency housing issue, because Valerie is rental units, and indeed I know NHC has failed to collect their rent over the years. Persons owe them at least last year $9 million in rent, and yet we walk around, some persons, oh, my unit not getting fixed. And I didn't raise that today because I'm not here to say because of this didn't happen. But at the end of the day, we must be able to be in a position to be self-sufficient, and if not self-sufficient, reduce the losses of $9 million. That's why Hope was formed, because we recognize that NHC has been losing money, failing to collect rents, but yet persons living free. So at some point in time, NHC has to say to the public, I am placing persons in these units that were built for $27 million at $651 a square foot. We have to recover some of this money. And I think that is where they are. I'm not finding excuses, but that is the reality. We need emergency housing, and we have to move swiftly so that those persons that you're speaking about, and I'm not certain whether the person is working or if the person is unemployed, but I'm just using that as an example to say how NHC has been run over the years by successive governments. You mentioned 9 years, and I'm not putting no excuse for my administration either. I look at NHC finances, and I see that NHC, the revenue NHC generates, and the expenditure is 100% more. The expenditure is probably 100% more than the revenue. So when persons can go into school halls and talk about shut down Hope and keep NHC going, they don't understand what is happening. They don't understand the dire situation, the losses that NHC have mounted up over the years. And I am happy for a forum just like this, to let the public know that NHC has been operating at tremendous losses, and we have the figures. And I don't want to go into the figures this afternoon, perhaps tomorrow when I'm wrapping up I can say it. But this is not to take away from the honorable member's question, because it's a fair question. You do not want to see your constituents living on the road in this country. And indeed, we need to push and get emergency housing up and running in this country as fast as possible. And that is my mandate. I will raise my hand. I'm leading the charge. This is my team. And I vow that Worrell House should be, once the acquisition comes through, it's by private treaty. And that's the fastest way to acquire something, by private treaty. Well, I shouldn't say that, because my dear good friend, Permanent Secretary, would tell me the Land Acquisition Act is the fastest way because it gives good title. And I don't want to get into that debate here. But Worrell House should be up and running in less than 6 months. And Madam Member for St. Michael South Central, I am hoping that before then, and if he's not accommodated, he'll be the first to move in to Warrell House. And I will see to that. My deputy permanent secretary is making copious notes, and I am a man of my word, both to you and also the member for St. Philip North.
Just, thank you. Just as I make my closing couple remarks, though, to clarify, my question was really one of process, you know. With an example where I was using that individual. To clarify, though, that man, when I met him, was paying rent, which was the same amount of rent as the housing units at Valerie. And in fact, I was able to help him submit to NHC a letter from his landlord confirming that he had never missed a rental payment. So this is not a question of NHC's revenue, no. This is a question of process, and the process by which people living in a community have access to the housing units in that community. I already stipulated that I understand that this is one Barbados, and somebody from St. Joseph whose house was slipping may have to end up in a unit for some time. So I am not numb to that reality. But as a question of ongoing process, one looks and realizes, whoops, somebody is in the unit that somebody else had applied for years from that community. How are those people expected to feel? This is a matter of process. I will not ask you to answer again, but I will ask you to consider this, because it is something that we have to address, because I raised it because I don't have the answer. I can't defend it. So I brought it to this chamber for you to defend it. But I'll leave it there. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield.
Honourable Member for St. Philip West.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question relates to conveyances, and I want to say that I'm grateful to the Minister and his team who went to St. Philip West in 2023. At that time, it was to speak with the residents of Jade Circle who had been displaced when the Searles to Six Rose Road was being done more than 20 years ago. My question, sir, is I know that there was some progress being made, and I'm trying to understand the question to the Minister. When might the people of Jade Circle expect to be able to have those conveyances? And when can we expect that process to be completed, given the meeting in 2023?
Thank you, Honourable Member, and I feel a sense of joy because I recall visiting with you a Saturday morning and my team, and the residents were indeed frustrated that after 20 years they have not been able to secure a title to their property. What I can say to you at this stage before I allow the Chief Legal Officer to come in, we're at a stage of discussing pricing with them, and the good news that all of them have been offered a discount for the fact that they've waited so long, and they're at a stage now of signing and handing over title to them. And I would allow the Chief Legal Officer to come in. This should finish before the end of the financial year 2024-2025. So over to you, CLO Bourneford.
Thank you, Minister. Yes, indeed, we have started working on transferring title to persons in Jade Circle. We did issue the offer letters to them, giving them the discount. A number of them have actually accepted the offer, and I think there are about 3 that have been completed within the last 2 months. So there are about a total of 5 in all that have been completed, and the others are active. So within the next couple of months, we expect that we should be able to close out that development, subject to, I think there are 2 persons who have not yet brought back in the offer letters. There may be an issue of financing, but indeed the matters are active. And we have made significant progress with transferring title to those persons.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, my second question relates to a number of the residents of St. Philip West who, while I say thank you for those persons who were displaced because of Elsa, who have been, their situation has been addressed. My question is with regards to when can we expect the rest of those residents, some of whom are still living in temporary shelter, when can we expect that the rest of the Elsa, persons displaced by Elsa, will be addressed? When can we expect that situation to be addressed?
All right, before I wrap up on that, I will allow the Chief Maintenance Officer, Mr. William Clark, to speak on St. Philip West. I will assist him, but allow him to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. Again, William Clark, Chief Estates Officer, National Housing Corporation. The Hurricane Elsa program, which the National Housing Corporation had engaged in, saw us fixing 987 solutions. 265 houses were repaired, were rebuilt, 503 were repaired, and we had a situation where 217 persons were given materials. To date, 241 repairs have been completed. 503 repairs have been completed. And certainly, we have assisted those 217 individuals with materials. When we look at what took place in parish by parish, if we go to this is St. Philip. What was that again? St. Philip West. What's happening at St. Philip West? Just give me St. Philip West. We have for St. Philip West, we've had 90 rebuilds that were affected. We've completed 87 of those rebuilds. We have 3 that are in progress. With respect to the repairs, second. We have for St. Philip 124 repairs were engaged in works, and 124 of those are completed. For St. Philip West, we had 21 of those repairs are completed. With respect to houses that have not had any work done on them, we have been in recent times experiencing a number of challenges with the legal issues with some houses. And I say that to say this, that there are areas where persons, we have not been allowed to go to carry out work on properties, because in some cases, a sister does not allow her brother to have access to the property. A brother does not allow his brother because he wants it for his siblings. And that has been some of the major issues we've had. We have recently been looking for properties for these ones. In fact, some individuals have had the opportunity to get a land in other areas, but that's being worked on. It's an ongoing process. But a number of the houses for persons who are affected by Elsa have been completed. We regret that a few remain outstanding. In fact, out of the 770 solutions that we had, there are only 24 that are currently outstanding.
Member for St. Philip West, at my notes, and I heard there's only 1 rebuild left in your area. And again, the challenge would have been landlord-tenant issues and the lack of housing where we can put these persons. Recently, Parish Land is one of the areas, member for Christchurch East, that NHC has the land, and we have identified we will have some of these lots prepared for the Hurricane Elsa persons. Haggett Hall, persons were placed in Haggett Hall because we said the quad units would be prioritized for those persons who have been impacted by Hurricane Elsa. Your next door neighbor, the member for St. Philip North as well, all of her repairs are finished. St. Philip South, all of his repairs are finished. And indeed, the rebuilds, there are only 2 rebuilds left in St. Philip North and 1 in St. Philip West. So the people of St. Philip have indeed been endowed with repairs and bills coming out of the Hurricane Elsa program. And this is remarkable, as well as St. Michael and the other areas. I don't want to go into the other areas, but I have the report from St. Lucie to St. Philip, where indeed we can see the progress with the Hurricane Elsa report on behalf of National Housing Corporation. So I hope that answers the question, and I commend you as well, because I know you visited the people and you told the people that the government will indeed address these problems. And I know it is a good afternoon for you to say to the people of St. Philip West, well done, thy good and faithful servant. I thank you.
I yield to you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member. You may wrap up.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, sorry. Mr. Chairman, let me just say that this year's budget, again, was prepared with a clear and decisive plan in mind for addressing the long-standing housing challenges. I'll take from here again, I would say to the Honourable Member for Christchurch South, I'm a listener, I'm a learner, I'm an engager. We never came to this chamber recognizing that we had all of the solutions. What we came to this chamber to tell the public that this government has engaged in what we call one of the most revolutionary housing programs in the history of politics in this country, the first of a kind. And I make no apologies to former administrations nor former leaders. We have, I heard the member for St. Michael Southeast saying it, 9 years ago, her constituent applied for a housing unit. What extended 9 years ago is probably a more dire situation now 9 years after, in terms of the number of persons who have demanded housing. And if we look at the record over the years, with 20,000 applications, and you're building 756 houses in 10 years, and then you have a housing stock as Asian as what we have from the 1940s, we are in a dire situation as it relates to housing. We are prioritizing affordability, accessibility, and quality, and resilience in our housing program. And that's why we have looked at the light gauge steel structure with the autoclave rated concrete panels that can be installed in half the time that it takes you to install even precast slabs and concrete blocks. And indeed, the cost per square foot at which we are building at is also revolutionary. We have come from the 651s, the 550s, and we're down to 300, and we're even looking to push it further. We have capped the cost of land to the less fortunate persons who are earning less than $2,500 a month net and $2,000 net a month. You may call it a subsidy. We call it making housing affordable for these people. I make no apologies. Hope has revolutionized the housing market in this country with the industrialized process, and through targeted initiatives and the increased transparency and the stronger partnership with the private sector, we will achieve. The Commission of Inquiry will be carried on after the Auditor General has done his work on hope, and our Prime Minister insists that this is done, we have nothing to hide at Hope. And after we have done that commission, that audit, after the Auditor General, we have given him the leeway to have the files to do what he wants to do with them, to assess them. Then the Prime Minister will converge our team, an independent team, to do what we have to do. Because for us, we want to live to see the day when the ordinary man and the ordinary woman can invest in shares in Hope. And we will continue to utilize the liquidity in the banking system. And I hope that after today's explanation, the Honourable Member for Christchurch South understands the model, the business model by which Hope is operating. Members of the chair, while we do not expect the road ahead will be without difficulties, we remain steadfast in our mission to house every last person. And with those few words, Mr. Chairman, I beg that this head now stand part.
Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I beg to move that you do not report progress to His Honour the Speaker and beg leave to sit again.
The question is that head 93 stand part. All honourable members in favour, you say aye. Honourable members against, you say no. You think the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that you do not report progress to His Honour the Speaker and beg leave to sit again.
The question is that I do now report progress to His Honour the Speaker and beg for leave to sit again. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Think the ayes have it.
Has reported progress and request leave to sit again. Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of the House until tomorrow, the 5th of March at 10 a.m.
Question is that this Honourable Chairman be suspended until Wednesday, the 5th day of March 2025 at 10 a.m. in the forenoon. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. This Honourable Chairman stands suspended until the 5th day of March 2025, 10 a.m. in the forenoon.